What if becoming a Sigma female isn't a personality type you're born with, but a journey? A journey marked by disappointment, self-discovery, painful lessons, and quiet transformation. Most people only see the finished version, the calm woman who isn't easily shaken, the woman who doesn't chase approval, the woman who seems completely comfortable standing alone. What they don't see is everything it took to become that person. Every broken promise, every betrayal, every moment she questioned her own worth, every time she had to choose between fitting in and staying true to herself. The Sigma female isn't created overnight. She evolves through stages. Each one strips away another layer of insecurity, dependence, and fear. But here's the surprising part. Most people never reach the final stage. Many remain trapped in seeking validation. Others become emotionally guarded instead of emotionally wise. Some mistake isolation for independence. Only a few continue growing until they reach a level of peace where outside opinions no longer control their lives. Today, we'll explore the journey of the Sigma female through 10 stages of personal evolution and reveal the final stage that very few ever achieve. Let's begin. Every journey begins with confusion. Long before she becomes confident, the future Sigma female often feels like she doesn't quite belong. She enjoys solitude more than most people. She prefers meaningful conversations over small talk. She questions social rules that everyone else seems to accept without thinking. At school, at work, even among friends. She sometimes feels like she's observing life from the outside rather than fully participating in it. People may call her quiet, reserved, even distant. But inside, she's simply trying to understand herself. At this stage, she often wonders if something is wrong with her. Why doesn't she enjoy constant attention? Why does she need time alone to recharge? Why do superficial conversations leave her feeling exhausted? She doesn't yet realize that these differences will one day become some of her greatest strengths. For now, they simply make her feel misunderstood. Like most people, she wants to be accepted, so she begins adjusting herself to fit other people's expectations. She says yes when she wants to say no. She stays in friendships that drain her. She tolerates disrespect because she's afraid of losing people. She hides parts of her personality to avoid criticism. For a while, this seems to work. People like her. They compliment her. She feels accepted, but something still feels missing, because acceptance earned by pretending never feels genuine. Slowly, she begins realizing that every time she abandons herself to make someone else comfortable, she loses a small part of her confidence. This stage is painful because it forces her to confront an uncomfortable truth. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to her energy, and not everyone who accepts her actually values her. Growth rarely begins during comfortable seasons. More often, it begins after disappointment. Perhaps someone she trusted betrayed her. Perhaps a relationship ended unexpectedly. Perhaps she gave everything to people who gave very little in return. Whatever the experience, it changes her. At first, the pain feels overwhelming. She questions herself. She wonders what she could have done differently, but eventually something shifts. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" she starts asking, "What can this teach me?" That question changes everything. Instead of becoming bitter, she becomes more aware. She starts noticing unhealthy patterns. She learns to recognize manipulation. She discovers the importance of boundaries. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it slowly transforms into wisdom, and wisdom becomes one of her greatest strengths. This is often the stage where people begin misunderstanding her. She spends more time alone. She becomes selective about who has access to her life. She no longer feels the need to attend every gathering or maintain every friendship. To outsiders, it may look like she's withdrawing from the world. In reality, she's reconnecting with herself. For the first time, she discovers that solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Loneliness is feeling empty because nobody is around. Solitude is feeling peaceful because you've learned to enjoy your own company. The difference is enormous. She begins reading more, learning more, reflecting more. Instead of constantly seeking distractions, she starts building a life she genuinely enjoys. This stage becomes the foundation for everything that follows, because someone who is comfortable alone becomes much harder to manipulate through fear of abandonment. One of the biggest turning points in her journey comes when she realizes something simple but life-changing. Not everyone has to like her. For years, she worried about disappointing people. She over-explained her decisions. She apologized for setting boundaries. She tried to avoid conflict at almost any cost. Now something changes. She begins saying no without guilt. She stops explaining every personal decision. She understands that protecting her peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. Some people won't like this new version of her. They'll say she's changed, that she's become distant, that she's harder to understand. They're right, she has changed. Not because she stopped caring about people, but because she finally started caring about herself. For the first time, her self-worth no longer depends on someone else's opinion. And although she hasn't reached her final form yet, she's closer than she's ever been. The woman who once chased acceptance is slowly becoming someone who creates her own inner peace. And that's where the next stage of her evolution truly begins. By this stage, the Sigma female begins responding instead of reacting. That doesn't mean she stops feeling emotions. She still experiences disappointment, sadness, frustration, and even heartbreak. The difference is that her emotions no longer control her decisions. In the past, she might have argued just to prove a point. Now she asks herself a different question. Will this conversation actually change anything? If the answer is no, she chooses peace over conflict. She understands that not every opinion deserves a response, not every insult deserves a defense, and not every battle deserves her energy. People often mistake this calmness for emotional detachment. In reality, it's emotional discipline. She has learned that protecting her peace is more valuable than winning unnecessary arguments. That quiet self-control becomes one of her greatest strengths. At this stage, her intuition becomes sharper than ever. Years of observing people, learning from painful experiences, and trusting actions over words have completely changed the way she views relationships. She no longer falls in love with potential. She pays attention to patterns. She notices how people behave when life becomes difficult. She notices whether someone keeps promises without being reminded. She notices how they treat strangers, family members, and people who can offer them nothing. Most importantly, she stops trying to explain away obvious red flags. She understands that people usually reveal who they are through consistent behavior. She simply believes them the first time. This doesn't make her cynical. It makes her realistic. Because seeing people clearly isn't about expecting the worst. It's about refusing to ignore the truth. One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that not everyone is meant to stay. The Sigma female eventually learns this lesson. She stops trying to save friendships that only exist when she's making all the effort. She stops holding on to relationships built on broken promises. She stops forcing conversations with people who have already emotionally checked out. Instead of asking, how do I make them stay? She begins asking, why am I trying to keep someone who doesn't want to be here? That question changes everything. She realizes that love cannot be forced, respect cannot be begged for, and loyalty cannot be negotiated. For the first time, she understands that letting go isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the healthiest form of self-respect. That realization frees her from carrying emotional burdens that were never hers to begin with. By now, the Sigma female has stopped waiting for someone else to complete her life. She creates her own happiness. She invests in her goals. She develops new skills. She takes care of her physical and mental well-being. She surrounds herself with people who genuinely respect her. She still wants meaningful relationships. She still believes in love, but she no longer believes that happiness depends on finding the right person. Instead, she becomes the kind of person who brings happiness wherever she goes. Ironically, this is often when healthy relationships begin finding her. Not because she started looking harder, but because she stopped searching from a place of emptiness. She now chooses relationships that add to her life, rather than trying to fill a void. That shift changes everything. Very few people ever reach this stage. Not because it's impossible, but because it requires letting go of something most people spend their entire lives chasing. the need for outside validation. At this stage, the Sigma female no longer measures her worth by compliments. She doesn't need everyone to understand her. She isn't afraid of being alone, and she no longer changes herself just to make other people comfortable. She knows who she is, she knows what she values, and she refuses to compromise those values simply to gain approval. This doesn't make her cold, it makes her free. She forgives without becoming naive. She loves without losing herself. She trusts, but she also protects her peace. She remains kind, but her kindness is no longer unlimited. It is guided by wisdom. People often describe women at this stage as mysterious. The truth is much simpler. They're no longer trying to prove anything. They've stopped competing, stopped chasing, stopped explaining. Their confidence is quiet because it comes from within, not from the opinions of others. Ironically, this is also when they become most attractive. Not because they're trying to attract attention, but because genuine inner peace is incredibly rare. The final stage isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming authentic. It's the moment when the Sigma female realizes that her greatest strength was never independence alone. It was learning to remain true to herself, regardless of who stayed and who left. The journey of the Sigma female isn't about becoming emotionally distant or shutting the world out. It's about becoming emotionally strong enough to live according to her values instead of her fears. She begins by feeling misunderstood. She searches for acceptance. She experiences disappointment. She learns painful lessons. She discovers the value of solitude. She builds confidence, emotional discipline, and wisdom. And for the few who continue growing, something extraordinary happens. They stop living for approval. They stop fearing rejection. They stop chasing people who don't choose them. Instead, they create a life built on purpose, peace, and self-respect. That is the final stage. Not perfection, not isolation, but freedom. The freedom to remain completely yourself in a world that constantly pressures people to become someone else. If this video resonated with you, tell us in the comments. Which stage do you think you're in right now, and which one was the hardest to overcome? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos on Sigma female psychology, personal growth, and self-mastery. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.